Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Nobles, and I'm the Dean of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences at MIT. I'm also a professor of political science, and as of today, a worried humanist. The challenges presented in this panel have been complex, and their possible solutions are also complex. In my time, I want to highlight the ways in which the humanities and social science disciplines at MIT help us to more deeply understand the challenges and possible solutions. First, I'll discuss an undergraduate class about climate change, and then I'll offer some thoughts on how we at MIT take into account the ethical and societal implications of technology in our teaching and research. I think that the Schwarzman College of Computing will provide an opportunity to build upon and expand our current activities. So whether we acknowledge it or not, when we think about global issues of human health and well-being, distribution of resources in cities, or the future of humankind itself, each one of us is engaging in moral reflection. And as MIT philosopher Caspar Hare observes, climate change is a fundamental moral issue because what we're doing potentially harms others we don't know, but the causal path to harm is complicated. As we know, much of the public debate around climate change and potential remedies does not always well reflect these complications, nor does public debate provide clear guidance for how we as individuals should act. In one of MIT's most popular philosophy classes, The Ethics of Climate Change, students are taught to approach climate change in ways that put ethical considerations and not only technological solutions at the center. For students, one of the most memorable lessons used the fundamental idea in game theory, the prisoner's dilemma. Basically, the prisoner's dilemma is a strategy scenario that pits cooperation against self-interest. Each student had to decide whether and how much to cooperate in order to win a piece of chocolate candy provided by the professors. One of the students reflected on her efforts to play cooperatively, and she lost. In her words, she said, "He ended up taking all of the chocolate, and Caspar, the professor, showed no mercy." Obviously, when thinking about climate change, there is much more at stake than a piece of chocolate. But the lesson helped illuminate the difficult problems climate change presents to all of us, as individuals, as members of society, and as inhabitants of the earth. In the class, students are asked to consider many important issues. For example, studies have shown, as we've heard this earlier in this panel, that climate change will disproportionately affect the developing world in many different ways, through reduced economic productivity to increased migration from rural to city centers. Studies have also estimated that more than half of the emissions have been caused by the U.S. and Europe as they reap the benefits of industrialization. So the students are asked to consider if, and if so, how far should developed nations be held accountable for past emissions. Overall, as one engineering student discovered, the class's ethical framework for decision-making gave her a way of thinking about big problems from different angles. For another student majoring in physics and biological engineering, the class provided him an ethical guide for his personal obligations and actions. This is one class, yet these student experiences illustrate the importance of reminding students of the very human issues that sit at the core of scientific and technological advances. At MIT, the commitment to drawing on all domains of knowledge is an essential component of our approach to research and education. Science and technology, and this is how we see it in the school, are embedded in the human world, in the political, cultural, and economic realities that shape human values, that shape human goals and actions. Whether the goal is to examine and create ways to alleviate poverty, create livable cities, secure safer food, or cure cancer, humanistic and societal considerations are suffused throughout our efforts. To give another example from anthropology, there is anthropology at MIT, we have Professor Amy Moran Thomas, who looks at the global diabetes epidemic is experienced by a small minority population in the country of Belize in Central America. As an anthropologist, Amy becomes deeply enmeshed in the lives of the people she studies, accompanying them to food markets, doctor's offices, and sadly, funerals. As compelling as Amy's scholarship is, it does not stop here. She has begun working with the Little Devices Lab at MIT to develop a glucometer that will be more universally usable. Next semester, she will be co-teaching a class, the social lives of medical objects. The new college of Schwarzman College of Computing provides us, it seems, an important opportunity to bring this humanistic perspective to bear on computing technologies. The rapid development of computing technologies and their widespread use in our research, teaching, and daily lives requires that ethical considerations be at the front of our minds. So already at MIT, we are offering classes that teach about technology and culture, ethics and engineering, internet policy, and ethics for AI, for example. And many more types of these classes are now being developed by faculty across all of the schools, especially in the School of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. The college requires us to think boldly and creatively about how to effectively integrate ethics and knowledge and acknowledgement of social impacts into computer science education and research. Such integration has two dimensions. The first is intellectual, the second is pedagogical. As an intellectual matter, taking ethics into account when designing technology, for example, often requires deciding between two competing values. For example, maximizing profits versus avoiding harm. Or put another way, as President Rife said last night, the question is not just whether you can develop a particular technology, but whether you should create it. As a teaching matter, requiring just one standalone course set apart from other computer science classes would be insufficient. It will take more than just one ethics class. So the integration will not be easy, but it is absolutely necessary. So I want to end with an observation by great statesman Henry Kissinger. So in a recent magazine article entitled, "How the Enlightenment Ends," Kissinger worries that if humankind is not careful enough and not mindful enough about how the capabilities of these computational technologies, that we will be creating a world, quote, ungoverned by ethical or philosophical norms. We cannot and we must not let that happen, and I'm convinced that the School of Computing that MIT has begun is going to provide a model for how we move forward. Thank you.